What's going on, guys? Reisshub back again with another video, and this is the pinnacle of Season 3 for me, which is VOD reviewing every single winner of every single region of every single platform. This is a 14-in-1 VOD review. This video would not be possible without Manu, Perix, Artek, Ryuji-san, Scar, and Perry OCE, who all came out to help me VOD review these people. I would not be able to have done this by myself in this time frame, so huge thanks to them. Please go and follow their socials. They're all down in the description and in the top comment as well. I normally keep my intros really short and get right to the good stuff, and if you've read my community post or my tweet over on Twitter, you may know that I lost my job due to the coronavirus, and I'm trying to make this my full-time thing, so please like, comment, share, and use my code Reisshub in the item shop. Anything you can do to help me out would be absolutely fantastic, because I would love to be able to do this full-time for you guys. This is a longer video with a bunch of different topics in here, so timestamps are on screen if you want to find anything particular. And now let's get into the individual sections. The winner from the Asian region on PC was Fram. He was the only player out of all of the winners from any region who actually took a poverty route and didn't land at a POI. Fram dropped at the small hill to the east of Misty Meadows, where he gets the military chest. Then he drops to the south to loot the small house with one chest, then goes northeast to grab the bridge and also the truck, which has a chest in it as well. He then goes up to the lake to fish and to grab the chests that are here and in the small house. Fishing and using floppers is a huge reason to his success, because his looting path only has 5 chests and around 11 floor spawns on it. This means that there's no opportunities for him to get any peppers, and there's a very low chance that he's going to get crash pads or a launch pad from these floor spawns and chests as well. This means that he can't rely on using a launch pad in first moving and then crash padding later on in the zones to get him through that end game. So what he does instead is he ensures that he has a large amount of floppers to get him through this end game, which allows him to reuse launch pads and reuse crash pads when he needs to, giving him way more freedom in the moving zones. He was also fantastic at creating choke points that his enemies had to go through in the end game, which gave him easy refreshes. He was also able to use those floppers to stay on the low ground, come up behind players, and get easy refreshes using the tac shotgun that way. He was so good at staying alive while securing these refreshes that in game 4, which was a 40-man moving, he managed to come 5th with 4 endgame elims without having shielded the entire endgame. His great use of floppers and great ability to pick up these eliminations in the endgame by setting up right hand peaks, creating choke points so that his opponents would run through them, is why he claimed the first spot in Asia. For console, the winner here was Wizza. I think it's pronounced that way, apologies if it's not. He drops at the yellow house in retail row and then goes to push doghouse. At the same time, he picks up the 9 cabbages which spawn outside, which are actually a really good source of non-RNG heals. Wizza actually has a really good Storm Surge strategy down, because there was Storm Surge on all of these regions on all of these platforms as well. He does this by pushing into Catty once he's looted these 2 houses in retail. He first goes and gets disguised and then has a few options of what he can do. He can either try to fight the player who's in the vault and potentially get the Catty loot from this, which he does successfully do in game 4, which he ends up winning. Even if he doesn't kill this player, that's free Storm Surge tags. Or he can just sit on top of this hill and take shots at all the players still in Catty and giving the free Storm Surge damage this way. This strategy is great because even if all the players from Catty have disengaged, he can then go and get some of the leftover loot from the vault. A lot of times players leave crash pads in the vault because they already have the shockwave launcher, so they just forget them behind, and Wizza can take advantage of this by just going in, picking up the crash pads and extra heals. So this strategy is great for multiple reasons. Firstly, he can loot his own buildings and do this very efficiently and quickly before disengaging, meaning that he doesn't have to fight off spawn very frequently, and he rotates early from his drop spot. He's also almost definitely guaranteed Storm Surge and better loot because of the crash pads and extra heals that the vault can give him. Down in OCE PC, we have Jynx who won, which should be a surprise to no one. Jynx landed rig in all 6 of his games and landed in the main rig, either landing at the top or straight into the vault depending on where the contesting player was landing. Most of the time this player decided to land on main rig with him, but Jynx won every single one of these fights. This gives him great Storm Surge damage as he's already fighting off spawn, but in the games that he didn't do this, he was relatively aggressive trying to get tags, but not over committing to them, just to ensure that he got the Storm Surge but didn't commit to a fight. To further emphasize this, he actually used hard mats to protect himself while rotating here, just to make sure that the opponents don't hit him at all, making him waste his own heals and increase the chance that they are going to push him. So this was overall a really clean strategy in the early game, just to use a little bit of brick. Jynx never took any fights that were a 50-50 and was always ensuring that he had the advantage before committing to the fight. He really hates crash padding into people's boxes, as this just creates a 50-50, despite the fact that a lot of pros do this. When it comes to using his mobility, he nearly always pads in the first moving because he gets his guaranteed pad from the rig and then uses his crash pads, which he got every single game, in the next moving zones. He really doesn't like using crash pads or any form of rotation after the second moving zone, so going into the 8th zone, because it gets a little bit too clustered and way too difficult to use them here. So this is the point where he likes to start committing his mats to get moving. He gets ahead, sprays back, head sprays back. And when he runs out of materials, drops down to low ground with his tactical shotgun and picks up loads of eliminations this way. And as we said, not taking 50-50s and just taking really, really good fights that he has the advantage in. Skits dropped at Authority and was uncontested in the first 3 games and then contested in the last 3. His usual strategy was to land on the top and then loot all the way down to the bottom, ensuring he got jewels and the vault as quickly as possible. Then after that he went to get the hard mats and to get the scan chests. Skits truly put the grappler to use in the early and mid game, getting to really good positions early on, specifically in the 2nd and 3rd zones. Because he was always able to get center of 3rd zone without taking any fights, he could get storm surge tags from here, and on top of that he really had to use very minimal materials in his mid game, saving loads for the end game. Then in the end game he did exactly what you should be doing with the grapple, is he was getting ahead of the zones, spraying back, and then letting the zone catch up a little bit to him, not so that he was at the back of the zone but potentially around halfway through, and then grappling ahead again, shooting back, grappling ahead, shooting back. Whenever he needed an impact frag, he did what the majority of the console and iPad players did, which was to ramp phase into someone's box using an AR and AR killed them. Because he was so safe with his mats in the early and mid game, and then also not using that many in the late game due to the grapple, this meant that his longevity in every single end game that he played was really good, as he managed to get 2 firsts, a 2nd, and a 13th. For the Middle East region on PC, our winner here was Spy. Spy landed Catty in 5 of his games, and in the last one he decided to go retail because the previous game too many people were going Catty to W key. In the first 4 games he was only contested by 1 player, and in these 4 games he landed in the caravan and never fought the opposing player. Whoever got kit off of spawn based on RNG got that for the rest of the game. The strategy was the same whether or not he eliminated kit or not. He would loot the north side as quickly as possible, pop a pepper, and then rotate as fast as he could. When Kit was there, he just ensured that he eliminated her as quickly as he could and then looted the vault instantly. Then looted main, peppered, and left. This was a great strategy because it meant that he got a large amount of loot and he rotated early to set himself up in good positions for the mid game. If you're going to do this like Spy does, you need to ensure that you plan out exactly on your rotates where you're going to get your hard materials from on every zone possibility. So wherever you drop, it doesn't really matter, you just need to be able to know exactly where you're going to get your hard materials are if you have to rotate either north, south, east, or west. One of the things that I noticed about Spy that I really liked in his gameplay was he's always doing something. A large amount of players just sit in their box when they've boxed up in zone and just really do nothing. But Spy is always ensuring that he's either editing to take shots to get storm surge tags, or that he's looking through his cone to ensure that he's scouting and gaining as much information as possible. There's never any downtime in his gameplay because he's always trying to plan ahead and get as much information as possible or prepare for that endgame as well as he can. For Middle East console, our winner here was IX Dyer. Dyer dropped to Authority and was contested in the first 5 games and uncontested in game 6. Generally, Dyer's strategy was to eliminate jewels as quickly as possible, then leave using the grapple to go and loot side the outside, then once the other player had left, he would then loot the vault. He would stay inside of Authority as long as possible just to ensure that he had really good mats, and often it's center zone, so it's not a bad spot to sit in. During the 2nd and 3rd zone, he would then use the grapple to get himself into really good positions early to help him get storm surge tags and also just set him up for the endgame, very similarly to Skits from OCE that we saw. Now his general loadout was very interesting because he didn't really run a shotgun in any games, and through all 6 games he had 0 shotgun eliminations. His preferred loadout was Scar, Drum Gun, Grapple, and Double Heals. The way he fought was very similar to the majority of the winners who played on console or, let's be real, iPad/mobile, and that was just to get in the box with the spray guns, be it the SMG or in this particular case the Drum Gun and his AR. A huge amount of his eliminations came from just simply jumping in the box and spraying. This was either the same in the early game, mid game, or late game. It didn't matter. This strategy worked a treat. It's not a 50-50 if you win every fight. So the thing I found very interesting is that he had a guaranteed pad every single game from the vault. So where he decided to use this was not actually in the moving zones, however it was actually to get into the 5th zone. The reason he didn't use the grappler at this point is because the zones are still stagnant, meaning they're not moving. This means that if other people saw him use the grappler when he landed, he would get focused. This means that he used the launch pad to get into the zone at this point, stopping him from being focused, and then during the moving zones, this is where he used his mythic mobility. Hopefully these are gone next season, but if they're still here, you can implement this as well. For the EU region on PC, our victor here was E11 Tayson. Tayson landed in Steamy Stacks all 6 games and landed in the main west building here. His preferred looting path was to loot this building from west to east, then leave to go and harvest the cube, grab the car park chest, harvest the boy here, get the truck, the shed, the other shed, and this looting path gives him nearly max metal and wood and 150 brick. He's also able to rotate really early from this position, which is good because Steamy is an edge map. All of the rumors about Tayson and Jamet's teaming clearly are not true because they fought in 3 of the early games, and Tayson really is not afraid to take any fights at all. He generally does not fight in the mid game, but if he gets a large advantage he will push, which is very similar to Benji Fishy that we've watched in previous VOD reviews. This is generally the strategy that I recommend to the majority of players, which is to only take your fights if you've got a significant advantage over the player. Maybe you've beaten them for 100 or you've cracked them already. This is the good time to take the fight, assuming your positioning on the map is okay, obviously. I think the thing that stands out the most about Tayson is his fantastic game sense. This may be a relatively small example, but he's really aware of where all the campfires are, no matter what the zone is. In Game 5, he manages to pop a campfire and stoke it during moving zones. Another cool example of something really small that he did is that he heard Benji Fishy popping a big pot in the endgame and he needed a refresh. At this point, he knew he had the advantage because he was at 200 HP and the other player was healing, so he crash padded into the box and got an easy refresh this way. Overall, there's a lot of these small little things that Tayson does that's really, really impressive, and all of this game sense can only come from just playing hours and hours and hours of the actual game, rather than just playing creative. On console, the winner for EU was Flame. All 6 games he landed at the yacht on the south side at the tip chest here, broke down and then looted this way, in a very similar looting path to the way Savage does this. He goes underneath using the fruit boxes and shield barrels to get his shields up, ensuring that he gets metal as he goes. He then goes to the containers to the east side and then quickly disengages from here. Given he's got so many chests to work with and guaranteed fruit boxes, there's almost a 100% chance that he gets rotations from here, be it either peppers or crash pads. He also did a play very similar to Savage that whenever he took the peppers, he would use them to rotate into the center of third zone early. Since the peppers last 60 seconds, you can actually use them to rotate very efficiently in the early, mid, and late game, so they're very versatile. Being in center of third zone or in a high ground position near here is absolutely critical and what all of these players focused on, and using the peppers to get to this point is a really good idea to get in here given how long they last and how many you get off spawn. However, to note, he did prefer to take the crash pads over the peppers, and when he did take these crash pads, he would use one pepper in the early game to ensure that he could loot quicker and then disengage faster as well. One of the standout things that Flame does really, really well to me is his fantastic end game. He does not need a large amount of materials to keep himself alive for a long time, and this is mainly due to his fantastic awareness and scouting. Every time he looks around a corner, he's very, very careful, peeking every single angle he could possibly take to ensure that there are no enemies there. This fantastic awareness alone and great movement enabled him to survive from 30th all the way to 2nd, picking up 8 eliminations at the time in Game 1, and he only did this using 10 builds. In your in-games, when you're rotating through old builds, you need to be ensuring that you're checking every single angle and that you know exactly where the enemies could possibly come from so that you can line up your crosshair, set up right-hand peak choke points, and get those endgame eliminations. For Brazil on PC, our winner here was the one and only King. King drops in Catty Corner in all 6 of his games and lands in the gas station. He then rotates over to the fruit house, down to get a little bit of materials to the southeast at the truck here, then rotates up to the hill to get shots on the players in main and get storm surge tags this way. Then he goes and loots the vault every single game regardless if he has the card or not. He lingers in Catty for a long time even if the zone's pretty far to ensure this way he can get rotation via the peppers to farm metal and to loot the extra crash pads and heals left over in the vault. These leftover heals are super important in his gameplay. In really stacked solo games, you almost definitely can't run without double heals. Even if you take really good rotation paths, there's just too many people alive to not be shot at. So this strategy where he ensures that he has a bunch of extra heals ensures that he's going to be much less scuffed coming to the end game. And King white lines nearly every zone and sits at the edge purely because he has the Catty loot and he can afford to do this. But because he has this extra mobility, it'll get him into a bunch of fights which will also get him a lot of storm surge tags. This really isn't something you can do if you do not have this good loot though. And remember, he only takes the fight if he has an advantage. One of the interesting things that King does is the fact that he always tries to focus on using a pistol over an AR. In Game 6, even going as far as taking a gold pistol over a gold scar, and in Game 2 taking a purple pistol over a purple scar. I feel like the pistol is something that's been really underutilized this season, but because it does the 2 times headshot damage and obviously uses mini ammo, it's still a super viable strategy, in particular if you have a looting path where you struggle to get AR ammo. King will not push an opponent if he doesn't get a 100% advantage off on his opponent first, and then when this player is trying to heal, he's going to continually spam them with the pistol. The purple and gold pistols have a reload time of 1.3 and 1.2 seconds, so it's really, really difficult for the opponent to try and heal in this time, meaning that you're going to be able to get closer if you're already at a further distance and continually apply this pressure and keep that advantage in the fight, enabling you to clean them up quickly. I would highly recommend you practice using the pistol so that you're efficient with it if you need to be. Also, since next season is going to be trios, it's actually really good to have one player running a pistol, as this allows the other 2 players to have a lot more AR ammo. For Brazil on console, our winner here was Killed, and he landed Fortilla in all 6 games. His looting path is something very similar to mine in the Fortilla video that I did, where he lands on the main island, completely loots this from top to bottom, then goes and grabs the chest under the solar panels. From then on, he's looking just to get tags on the players who are here for Storm Surge, but not necessarily committing to a fight. In the first 3 games in a row, Ocean spawns in the main island that he drops at, so he gets his mythic loot in the first 3 games straight away. And his preferred inventory from here was the mythic AUG, chug, crash pads, minis, and a shotgun. With the chug, given the fact that it takes 15 seconds to use and 60 seconds to refresh, you can actually consistently stay in the zone in the first zone and second zones, as these are only 1 tick, and stay behind other players and get really free rotates in. The problem with this obviously is you can end on the edge. However, this is what he did in game 1, as he knew there was a contesting player waiting for him in Fortilla, so he just waited using the chug and then went in to get the vault afterwards, getting in more heals and more crash pads, and the guaranteed launch pad from the vault chest. While he was still looting in Fortilla, he often didn't want to take the card because it takes up an inventory slot for a quick heal or mobility piece. So while here, he often boxed it up in wood because you can't really see the card through the wood just based on the colour of it. On iPad, the AUG is absolutely ridiculously broken. He would very often hit players for 100 to 150 damage before cleaning up an easy fight with either crash pads or just by farm fizzing into their box. He got the highest amount of elims out of any winner from any region, and this is really clear when you watch his gameplay how much of advantage he got just by beaming players with the AUG up front. Our winner for NA East PC was O2Coop. Coop dropped in Slurpy Swamp all 6 games. He lands in the middle building, breaks down, and then is able to get maximum shield and maximum metal from this path, and does so really early. After looting this building, he immediately goes out north to fish, as this is a huge part of his gameplay. He also starts to farm his wood here. Then he pushes over to Weeping Woods, where he gets the remainder of his brick and his wood. This looting path allows him to rotate pretty early, and since he's rotated early with a good amount of materials, he likes to claim a high ground position so that he can get Storm Surge tags this way. In a few games, taking the hill just north of Slurpy and just south of Weeping. In Coop's end games, he is a master of the cone. Usually once he's boxed up, he sits in the cone on top of this, and this is for multiple reasons. Firstly, obviously to gain as much information as possible on his surroundings, but on top of this also prevents any opposing players from crash padding into his box and eliminating him, as he'll be safely sitting in the cone above them. In the end of game 4, he also makes a really nice play that's really underutilized. He has a single build remaining, and all he does is place it on the ground and hide in the cone. This helps him survive a lot longer in this game, rather than just running around on the low ground waiting for eliminations, and even clutches him up some placement points. This is an old strategy that I still think is really underutilized, but when you're low on materials, it's still really good just to ensure that you have that little bit of protection. As I said earlier, he's also fantastic at using his floppers in the endgame too, and they're a huge part of his playstyle. His 2 main uses for these are similar to other really successful flopper players, which is 1, to stay in earlier moving zones and reuse mobility, be it crash pads or launch pads, and then 2, in later zones to try and stay back in the zone when he's low on materials and pick up eliminations this way. The winner for the NA East console was the BNB Twins. His early game and looting path was very similar to our PC winner, Coop, where he landed in Slurpy, but this time he actually landed to the west, not in the main building like Coop did. However, BNB Twin path was a lot slower and a lot less efficient. It took a lot more time to loot while being in Slurpy, and a lot of dead time, not exactly being as efficient as possible with the time he had there. One of the things we noted from the majority of the players so far is that they loot as quickly as possible, getting as much hard materials as fast as they can, and then they instantly disengage and try to rotate as quick as possible. Now that is the case with the majority of the people apart from King, which we've seen so far. Now BNB, like I said, takes a little bit too much time to loot here, and this gets him caught up in the back of the zone sometimes. It makes his mid-game rotates more difficult than they need to be. In the endgame, BNB does something fantastic, which is absolutely abuse the terrible audio that is currently in the game in these stacked games. When players are shooting at your walls and you're boxed up, it's actually really difficult for you to hear this completely. And if you find a player facing away from you, you can spray them and almost guaranteed hit them through the builds, because A, they won't be able to hear the audio in time and react fast enough, and B, these endgames in these super stacked games are so laggy that you can probably shoot them through your turbo build, or in particular, in this case, you can run through the turbo build like BNB does as well. So if you're in a really stacked endgame, try and use this to your advantage. For NA West, our winner here was Vert, and he landed at Fortilla all 6 games, and in these games he decided to drop in the southeast island of this. He would loot this island and then immediately go over to the vault to do the exploit where you can go underneath and grab the supply chest and the regular chest from here, gaining him a guaranteed launch pad, better heals, and great potential at getting more crash pads. Then disengage and try to farm up the brick and wood in the swamp areas around him. Something Vert does really well in his endgame is his use of good layering to use crash pads from. In game 1, he uses his launch pad to get into the 50-50 zone as its max distance. He ensures that he lands at a high level when he's here because he still has 6 crash pads in his inventory. This helps him out because using crash pads from a higher layer makes you go further, and also has much less chance of you hitting into the opponent's builds and not going any distance at all. So when you're carrying crash pads in the endgame, try to gain a little bit of elevation, and this will make you use less crash pads and make you go much further with each one. Another thing that he does really well in his endgame is knowing his inventory and being patient and working around this. You can see here he's in a really tough spot, back of zone, zone's pulling up on him, he does have the grappler and there's a lot of builds kind of blocking his way. He uses the grapple to get up and then he takes a tack shot and cracks the opponent with a 75 damage shot. Now, a lot of players in this situation would just end up pushing him and overcommitting to this fight, but he really doesn't need to. He's very aware that he still has materials, he has the grappler, he's very aware of what he has in his inventory right now, and he just disengages, gets ahead, and he ends up winning this game with 9 eliminations. You really need to be aware of whatever utility, whatever materials you have in your inventory, and that's what a lot of these top guys do really well. It's just the multitasking element of this, thinking about what you have at all times and how and when you can utilize them. This one small decision that he made won him the game, and probably also won him the tournament. The winner from NA West console was Kytrex, and he dropped at Catty Corner 6 out of 6 games. He landed at main, and his looting path was just pretty similar to others, just loot the top of main and disengage. He played endgame like you should with Catty's loot, which is launch first moving, or potentially launch into the 5th zone if you need to, because again you don't want to be using your shockwave launcher here because you will get focused, and then keep getting ahead using your mobility. And because you have the Catty launcher, in all honesty you can take height way earlier than you normally would. You can take height at this point at the end of first moving. Then, wait until zone catches up, fire across to next height, and repeat this basically throughout the entire endgame. He continually applies pressure down, getting eliminations this way, which gives him these refreshes that you need to keep moving, and again, right at the end, just shooting down the Catty launcher onto the players below. At the end of the last season's video on the FNCS Invitational, I hoped that the grappler would not return, but unfortunately this season something a little bit worse was in this. So I'll say here, fingers crossed that this isn't the strategy that works next season. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. There's been a ton of work that's gone into it. Remember, please like, share, and subscribe if you aren't already and already haven't. All the support really helps me out in trying to make this my full-time thing. Also, please go and check out everyone I've collaborated with in this video. All their links are in the description and in the pinned comment. Have a good one. See you!